Could Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow and her husband Chad Daybell soon be facing the death penalty? It has been 8 months since Lori's missing kids, J.J. and Tylee, were found buried in Chad's backyard, and still no one's been charged in their murders. Now, a secret recording made of an Idaho prosecutor is shedding shocking new light on the case. We've got the tape. Plus, Chad's former friend is here revealing how she says he preyed on her at an energy healing session. As the world awaits the results of the just completed autopsy of Chad Daybell's first wife, Tammy, Chad and his current wife, Lori Vallow, are still dealing with a shocking twist in their current court case. Last June, the couple was charged with felonies related to the concealment, alteration, and destruction of evidence in the grisly deaths of Lori's children, J.J. and Tylee. But bombshell audio recordings of a conversation between prosecutor Rob Wood and Lori's sister Summer Shiflett threatened to derail the case. Chad and Lori's defense attorneys accused Wood of misconduct, claiming he inappropriately discussed the case with Shiflett.
I'm just going to tell you right now, we are going to be filing conspiracy to commit murder charges against both Chad and Lori, and we're not shy about that.
On the conspiracy to commit murder, is that a death penalty thing, or
it is a death penalty case in Idaho?
Are you planning to ask for that for them, or do you not?
We sure hope we don't. A lot of that will depend on her.
Knowing her, if she comes out of this state and realizes the weight of it, she may prefer that.
Most heartbreaking of all, Shiflett asked Wood about updates on the investigation into her niece Tylee's cause of death.
She is at the FBI's state-of-the-art crime lab. We don't know really any more yet. We may never know due to the destruction of that body.
Chilling details for grieving family members who simply want answers and justice. The judge ultimately determined that the prosecutor did nothing wrong in this conversation and that he can stay on the case, but we're still feeling the ripple effects of the information revealed on the tape. Nate Eaton from East Idaho News is back with the latest. Nate, is the prosecution any closer to pursuing more severe charges or the death penalty, as was brought up in this recording?
Well, as of today, we don't publicly know that. I imagine there's a lot going on behind the scenes so that they can file those charges, as the prosecutor said. One of the big issues, as you know, Dr. Oz, is COVID-19 is prohibiting any juries or grand juries from meeting here in the state of Idaho. So they want to take this before a grand jury. By all indications, that way Lori and Chad could be indicted on these potential crimes. They just can't meet. So once the COVID-19 crisis comes to an end, then I imagine there'll be further progression on the case. As for the death penalty, if the prosecutor does decide to pursue the death penalty, then once those conspiracy charges are filed, they have 60 days to let the public know that, yes, the death penalty will be pursued from the time Lori and Chad are arraigned. And then, of course, it elevates this case to a much higher level.
So the prosecutor on that tape also revealed that Tylee's remains were at the FBI crime lab. How was the state of Tylee and JJ's bodies? And because they were found in a horrible situation, they were buried, they'd been there for more than 8 months. How was that hindering the pursuit of justice?
Well, it's just the horrific conditions. Tylee, they had to dig and really go through it, soil, bit by bit of soil, and they were able to find a piece of her flesh. But that's really all that remains of her, a few bones, a few other parts of her body. So that's going to take some time to determine how she actually died. JJ's body was preserved. We know that he was wrapped in plastic and duct tape. It was a little compact burial. And so, yeah, that can cause some issues, and the FBI is working to determine the cause of death on both of those bodies. And once they have a cause of death, that will obviously make the prosecutor's case stronger.
Now, in the secret recording of the prosecutor, the one that was from talking with Lori's sister from this past October, he also said that you might be interested in a plea deal, that Lori's thinking about it. So take a listen, everybody.
Your sister's actually made some overtures. She might be willing to talk to us.
I hope she does. I pray for that all the time.
We hope she does.
Yeah.
She actually was talking with Chad about talking to us before we found the bodies, just a few days before, and he talked her out of it, which is too bad.
Meanwhile, the prosecutor did not mince words when he described his opinions of Chad Daybell to Lori's sister. Take a listen.
He's highly manipulative.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm not going to say he's highly intelligent, but you don't have to be highly intelligent to be highly manipulative. He looked like he was about to pee his pants because he's actually a wimpy person.
That wimpy person comment was in reference to how Chad apparently looked when he and Lori were first confronted in Hawaii. You were there that day. Is the prosecutor's assessment accurate? And how will these claims affect the case long term?
I can tell you that when I confronted Lori and Chad there in Hawaii, he looked frightened. He was white as a ghost. He didn't say a word. It was almost as if he was shaking. Lori, on the other hand, grabbed his hand and proceeded to lead him through that parking lot into that resort. She seemed calm and collected. She actually answered one of the questions when I said, people are praying for you. She said, that's great. But she seemed put together. Chad, on the other hand, seemed very frightened. As for whether their demeanors, their personalities, if they might turn against each other, up until this morning when I spoke with my sources, they are standing side by side. They are still in love. They still believe that they have a mission to do, that God has sent them on this mission. And I don't know if one of them will ever turn against the other. It may be something that they go to their graves still supporting each other.
Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell have pleaded not guilty to all of the charges that they are facing. Nate, thank you very, very much. Coming up, Chad Daybell's former friend is here. She's revealing how she says the Doomsday author misused his spiritual gifts to prey on women. Long before Lori Vallow's children, J.J. and Tylee, were found dead in her husband Chad Daybell's backyard. Chad was a successful writer and publisher who often discussed his connection to the spiritual plane and preparing people for the end of the world. Another author he published books for is Julie Rowe, and she joins us now. Julie, thanks for being here and thanks for speaking openly about this case. What was your first impression of Chad?
Well, I'm going to give you a straight up honest answer. And I thought he seemed like a nice enough guy, a bit dorky, socially awkward, but he was very nice.
So I know you had some interactions with him. You initially defended Chad when J.J. and Tylee first disappeared. How did you feel when their bodies were found in his backyard?
It was the ultimate betrayal. Had a lot of anger and betrayal energy come up. Heartache, sadness, sorrow, devastation. But I'd say the strongest was betrayal and anger.
And how did he manipulate you to not recognize that this was a possibility? Did you feel manipulated?
Absolutely. Yes. I believe he groomed me along with a lot of other people. I do have some spiritual gifts of discernment and being able to read energy, so I always picked up on something that was off on him. But I also had seen him in vision for a long time and knew I was supposed to write books with him. And so I was always trying to make sense of this conflicting energy that I had coming from him and that I felt towards him. But I'm also a pretty open-minded person, and I believe we all have weakness. So I just could never imagine that he would do something so heinous and gross. Absolutely disgusted.
So shortly after J.J. and Tylee were found in Chad's backyard, you accused him of sexual assault. What happened?
He made a pass at me that was unwelcomed. And basically, he looked like he went into some kind of weird trance. He got a weird look in his eye, and he lunged at me and started grinding all over me.
How did you stop him?
I said his name 3 times, and I pushed him off of me.
And how did he react? Did he snap out of the trance?
He did, and he actually started crying.
And what did he say had happened? Why had he attacked you?
He never did say. I confronted him again a few weeks later in a text message and tried to call in middle of December, and he would not respond. And then again in January. And in February, I finally texted him and just laid it all out there and let him have it pretty good. His response in February of 2019 was, wow, you really know how to burn bridges? You don't know me at all. And then he continued to tell me that he and Tammy were having marital issues. He was trying to keep his marriage together, that finances were tough, and a bunch of other stuff. That was also when I confronted him about what he was doing to other women.
I mean, what was he doing to other women? Was he grooming them as well?
Texting and calling, and it had gotten back to me at that point that he had been talking to a lot of women. And like when he would have his book signings, groups of women would come up and talk to him.
And the grooming process was him complimenting them or saying that he had visions about them?
I think it was him using his spiritual gifts, which he legitimately has or had, I don't know if he does anymore, to woo them in and to get them to trust him as some kind of spiritual person.
And then take advantage of them, in theory.
Yes.
So,
I don't believe he tried anything physical with anyone else. If he has, no one's come forward. I believe, there's a lot of rumors online that I wanted him or something, and that's absolutely not true. I believe maybe he went after Lori when he realized he couldn't have me, or maybe he was trying to groom both of us at the same time. I never met Lori, so I was told, my angels told me to stay completely away from Lori.
So we reached out to Chad Daybell's attorney for a response to Julie's allegations. We have not heard back at the time of this taping. Authorities are still investigating the sudden death of Chad's first wife, Tammy. And I want to bring her into this because she died just weeks before Chad Daybell married Lori, his current wife. Now,
right.
You have previously said that Chad told you he had visions of Tammy dying. Do you believe he had anything to do with her death? And what were these visions?
Absolutely. Not only do I believe he had something to do with this death, I believe he committed murder of both the kids and of Tammy.
Oh, my. What were the visions that he shared with you? What was going on?
He called me in the spring of 2017 and told me that he'd seen Tammy dying in an accident in their truck. And then on October 1st of 2018, after we had not been in contact since March when I quit publishing books with him, he owed me royalties, and I sent him a handwritten letter because he still had not acknowledged what he'd done to me or paid me my royalties. So I sent him a handwritten letter and told him we needed to talk, that he'd been very unprofessional. On that phone call, I asked him again, do you still see Tammy dying? And he said yes. And he said, I wouldn't be surprised if she died in her sleep.
Let me take a step back for a second. You share some of the same beliefs as Chad. Where do you think he went wrong personally? Did he cross over to a dark side, so to speak?
Very much so. You don't commit murder and adultery unless you're in a dark place. Whether he did it consciously or not, initially, I believe he signed contracts with the adversary, with the Luciferians. That can be done both in spirit realm as well as in a mortal body, and this is what I believe happened to Chad Daybell. I believe he's rising in the ranks of the Luciferians. Part of what's required to do that is to try to rape or to successfully rape, to commit adultery, to murder, and to specifically murder your spouse as well as murder your children or someone else's children. And then it goes even further when you rise in the ranks, that you disembody those bodies, cut them up, and bury them. And I believe that he shows the signs of all of this that the Luciferians engage in.
And the Luciferians, are they devil worshippers? Is Satan?
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Julie, thank you for sharing your insights, your thoughts, and trying to explain what's going on. I wish you the best.
Thank you, Dr. Oz.
This is the first time we've gone in depth into Chad and Lori's beliefs. It's evident from what you just heard from Julie that Chad and others associated with him have some pretty outlandish ideas that may have played a role in what happened. This case is continuing to evolve, and we'll follow it closely. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.